But our guest entrepreneur tonight is Kyle Martin. He's lives in Fort Wayne. He's actually vice president over at Ferguson Advertising, and he's got a new product that he and a couple of his friends are developing, and he's got a real interesting story. It's kind of a classic entrepreneur story, but I'll let him tell it. But I think for me the key was, you know, a lot of times people come up with ideas, and then they kind of just never do anything with it. But these guys came up with an idea they thought was a good one, and they actually patented the idea. They did the, you know, hired an attorney, did the search, and now have the opportunity now to start manufacturing a very interesting product in kind of a new category. So I think you'll enjoy hearing his story. Someday it could be your story. So ask questions. You don't have to wait till the end to ask questions. If you have something you'd like to have him explain a little deeper, or you're not quite sure if you understood the reason they did it this way or that way, just ask questions. We just want to have a conversation here. It's not a lecture, it's more of a conversation. Enjoy the pizza. You need to get a little more later. I'm sure we have some more left. Everybody, there's a soda pop in the fridge, there's water, so help yourself to that too. So, Kyle, I think the group is yours. We'll
I didn't have to do anything but pause. That's too easy. And Mark covered quite a bit, so I'll just take questions now. Well, hopefully your story as an entrepreneur is a little bit different. Hopefully what ours ends up being is, you know, millions of dollars of sales in Walmarts and Amazon and all those outlets across the country, right? We're not quite there yet, but as Mark mentioned, we've got a product that we've had some fun with. The entrepreneurial side of it's been, you know, value in itself. We've all learned a lot along the way. Continue to learn more with the help of Indiana Tech here. So, Mark mentioned my day job is advertising. My side gig here is the Go Grill. So, and I start with a little bit of backstory before we get into what that is. So, the cabin that you see on the right is our quote-unquote entrepreneurial garage. So, you know, you hear about all the companies that are starting garage. Ours was actually started in a cabin in Richmond, Indiana, and it was it's actually a product of the minds of a group of us, 4 of us actually, Mike, Brian, Brad, and myself. It's a mixed group of us. It's a mixed group of, you know, skills, if you will, or talents, and it consists of a pathologist. It's Mike. He is a medical director at St. Francis Hospital System in Indianapolis, so that's interesting. Has some interesting background, but he's part of the brains of the operation. Brian Wilson is in corporate strategy. He works for Cummins Diesel Engine. They're out of Columbus, but he's actually stationed in Belgium right now, so helping to develop that international market. Brad Wilson's a developer, web developer. He's worked for several startups as developing apps and platforms in that sense. And I'm the marketing guy, so I like to position myself as the creative, but there's a whole lot more research and development engineering as far as that goes. Although no engineers in the mix, are developer and pathologist. We're the true brains of the product development. So, we annually the 4 of us would get together, and we converged in Richmond, Indiana, because it was the central location for all of us. I'm in Fort Wayne. There's one of the guys lived in Dayton at the time, and a couple other in Indy, and so we tried to come up with a central location. And this was purely based on our friendship. We were college fraternity brothers in a couple circumstances, and then brothers and just mutual friends. But we converged, and every summer got together and continue to get together for what we call the Manly Man competition. I won't go into details about that. So, but that's where the product stemmed from. And that obviously, that Manly Man competition fell into our desire to cook and eat, and without stopping what we're doing, and that entailed golfing at the time. So, and we still do. So enter the Golf and Grill 1000. This isn't our patented product, but it is the first iteration of it. And basically, what this entailed was some pieces of window trim. screws, foil bread pans, and that's not shown in the visual here. Some chicken fence that served as our grilling grate, aluminum foil it was 2.0 because our contraption caught on fire in its first iteration, so we used foil in the second. Some bungee cords to strap it around the back of the golf cart, and it resulted in an extremely dangerous device. So basically what we were wanting to do is cook while we were golfing. So the Manly Man competition consisted of us getting together, staying in this cabin, getting up early in the morning, being on the golf course from sunrise to sunset, not really wanting to stop, trying to get in as many holes as we could, wanted to devise a way to eat something more than bologna sandwiches and chips that we could tuck in our bags. So we devised this device that kind of, if you're, if people are familiar with golf carts, it's a basket on the back. So it laid across the platform on the back, bungee corded to it. We set bread pans there in the end in that squared off area, and with the chicken fence, and put an aluminum bread pan on top of it, and we were off and cooking. And 1.0, as I mentioned, resulted in a pretty serious fire. I don't know if I remember right, hole 3, and but did perform pretty well for us the next couple of years. So, of course, in the evenings, conversation entailed a number of things, but one of which was how great this product was, how much fun we had with it, and maybe some of the risks that went along with it, and how could we avoid that down the road. So that resulted in the Golf and Grill 2000, not the Go Grill, but this is, if you will, our first iteration of what kind of came out of that want to cook and play golf and do things that guys do on golf courses. So actually this stemmed from Mike and Brad trying to come up with a flameless option. So that fire really instilled the notion of, we love doing this and it's fun and we like having burgers and dogs out on the course, but how can we avoid the risk part of it, especially when you're dealing with gasoline-powered golf carts that probably aren't a good idea to mix fire close to. So this is a smaller grill. It uses very similar bread pans, as I mentioned, that we used in the earlier contraption. Obviously engineered a little bit better with some clamps and things to keep it closed. And the power source, or the heat source, was a element that we ripped out of a toaster oven. College students, I'm sure many of you still have toaster ovens that you heat pizza up in. So we bought the cheapest toaster oven we could, ripped that heating element out, and then powered it, heated it up through, obviously you can't really plug in using electric style grill on the golf course, and we didn't want to, eliminating the flame was our major objective as well, so we couldn't really go to propane or another source that generates flame, so we used existing tool batteries. So that was the way to get away from electric grill style plug-in-the-wall unit to something that would be more wireless, transportable, portable, if you will. And so we powered the unit through the couple of 18-volt cordless drill batteries. Those pictures along the bottom there are, our spit and glue that we use to get them to work. Brad and Mike, as I mentioned, the developer and the pathologist, studied some electrical engineering books over the course of a few weekends, enough to get us to a point where we could get heat going into our heating element. So this lived on for a couple of years, and we never really considered it anything more than a novelty to our group. We had fun with it, had fun showing it to our family and friends. Got positive feedback generally, and we kind of took it from there. So, if I recall, kind of the moment of let's really do something with this is that if you ever do an internet search for novelty golf items and the sales that they generate, it's ridiculous. So there are all kinds of exploding golf balls and quirky things that people spend their money on, shoe bags that you can use as a cooler that hide beer, and guys spend their money on really dumb stuff. So if we thought if there are people out there making money and a business around a product that is such as dumb as this, and maybe we should reconsider. And at that time we were kind of we still had blinders on to this being a very applicable product just for the golf course. Hadn't really expanded our minds to think about what other markets might have a demand for this kind of a, grill, if you will. So we took it a little bit further, and this just outlines the components that we felt are sellable components. So as we started to break it down, and then that led to more marketable approaches for the grill itself. So it's flameless, safe to operate. Obviously, that was our #1 goal. Cordless. You're not limited to having an outlet close like electric grills. George Foreman's another, I'm sure, popular component, or at least what I used to cook with in college. Maybe not as many cook with it anymore. It mounts to nearly anything, so we had a clamp, as you saw in the slide before. It became a little bit more refined. There is an actual clamp there. We just had to support it with some cable ties as well to make sure it didn't move. So that's kind of a la GoPro, attaching this grill to really anything that moves was the idea, that you could cook on the go, and that pays off a second class bullet. And then at the time, our thought was, and we haven't really updated this deck yet, Stacy, but was the notion of utilizing existing off-the-shelf batteries, so people could buy this grill, and you already have a Black & Decker device or maybe devices now that run on certain batteries. Let's just make an attachment that will take those batteries, and people won't have to invest in that, already have it. Our thinking may be, and it has changed since then, we can maybe talk to that a little bit later, partly instilled by some students here at Indiana Tech. So that's kind of the notion that we started with, and what the product entailed. And then as we started to continue to think about applications, is this truly marketable, and kind of expanding our horizons beyond golf. And I think it's arguable in this case, and that again, the findings of the students here as well supported this notion that golf may not be the best application for it, although certainly there's a niche audience that may want to cook and golf on the go. There are applications in boating, guys that want to go out and fish all day and not come into the shore to cook a hot lunch without necessarily risking their lives with open flames on fuel-powered engines as well. Apartment balconies and patios, I'm guessing that there's a few of you that live in apartments that don't allow open flame grills on your patio, so this could be a solution for that, and I think a very strong possibility in that market. Beverage and food carts, we have a picture on the right side there of a food cart that actually is used on the golf course, but not necessarily by the golfers. So they're out selling cold drinks and chips and cold sandwiches per se, but not able to offer a hot dog or a burger to somebody out on the course itself. So perhaps we could market to those people, course owners. Food delivery services, I won't go on in breaking down each one of these, but we started to gain some momentum with all the different applications that we felt are good possibilities as potential markets and customers of this grill. So that gave us further motivation to take it further and actually invest in, as Mark mentioned, a patent. So this is a very, very long process. If it seems like you should be able to apply and get feedback and get either offered or denied a patent in a very short amount of time, well, it doesn't work that way. We've kind of learned the inner workings of the government, if you will, in this case. And although it's been expedited and there's been some policy changes over the time that we've been filing for this and working on the grill, the overall process is still very lengthy. So, and that starts with patent research. So we partnered with a intellectual property firm that starts with doing a complete audit of what's on the U.S. patent and trade market, or what's patented today, to see if there's anything of similar nature to the grill that would in turn obviously eliminate the possibilities for us to patent it. So that is a lengthy process and an expensive process as well to get things started. And what they come back with is yes or a no. There's something out there that's similar, and there are some things they'll generally share those those products that are in the periphery of your product itself, and so it'll be a collaborative decision on whether you decide to move forward or not, because in the end, it's not the patent attorney that's going to offer you, to file the patent or not, or to give you the patent or not. It's the government. It's going to be up to that reviewer. So it's somewhat subjective at that point if you should move on based on what the findings are, or if not. But we felt that the patents that were found that kind of were on the periphery of our grill, there was nothing like it, and there was not a battery-powered grill on the market, but there were portable grills that had some similarities. But we decided to go ahead and invest in continuing with that filing. So we worked with the attorney through that process, filed our patent in 2010, and then it took more or less 2.5 years, 3 years for us to hear back. And there were some interactions in between that time for clarification purposes and whatnot, but the first ruling came back from the Patent Office in 2013, and it denied many of our claims. So we were going after the broadest stance possible and to protect our product and technology from anyone else infringing on it. And not unlike insurance companies, that Patent Office reviewers' first charge is to deny as many of the claims as possible, because they want to make it very difficult, and then once your product does get patented, that it's exclusive in its utility or design. So and that involves some back and forth and additional investment resources with the patent attorney, which they love for us to say, yes, let's defend this, or go back to them with a refined claim, or to argue perhaps one of the claims that they eliminated. So that happened over the course of the next 6 or 8 months, and we were happy that in the end we feel very strongly that our technology, and especially in the sense of battery-powered grilling, is protected, and we're the only ones on the market that have that. So it was published in 2014. We got this nice, pretty certificate, gold stamp at the top, U.S. Patent and Trade Office. So if anything comes out of this, we have that, claim to fame, I guess. That
You mind sharing how much the total cost was after you added up all the items?
We're probably about $12,000. So it's over the course of 6 years, 7 years from the beginning, and that we've kept track of what we've invested in product as well. So
people sometimes also ask, how long is a patent good for? I mean, you made a substantial, the answer to that.
I don't.
And I get different answers. Like people usually say it's about 20 years or something like that. Nobody ever says it's one specific time frame whenever I've asked the question. So
we haven't really reached a point with the product yet. We've gotten worried about it. We've had other priorities and objectives other than counting down our product. Once we start getting into sales, I'm sure that'll be more of a concern. So,
did you file anywhere, any other countries?
We're in the middle of filing an international patent, and that was something that we discussed with your classes. So we're working with our attorney again, which they're happy about, and filing. And that's actually fairly negligible as it relates to the overall investment. I think at $1,500, it's still not an insignificant amount of money, but related to what we've invested in the initial filing, international protection is economical, I guess, if you will. If you think of $1,500 as economical, I don't. So this, you can search our names out on the internet and find our patent in a number of sources and areas. So we've started to position the grill as far as its marketability goes. These next few pages give you a little bit better visual of the latest rendition of the grill itself. Obviously, it looks a little bit better than that first snapshot on the golf course. We're using a clamp from a tripod. If you're at all familiar with that, we've got a couple of different batteries. And then what's tucked into that box on the back is some additional wiring that then feeds the circuit to the heating element in the grill. So for the most part, the parts are still the same. We've got a little on and off switch with an LED light, and temperature sensor there to control, or to at least monitor heat. We don't have a heat monitor aspect of it yet, but we have a number of recommendations and thoughts as far as where we'd like to take this in its next iteration. So, overall, very small, portable. Some people are concerned about size. Something that we've investigated is with research groups with Stacy and Mark has been how big it should be, how much people want to cook to make it a value to them or something that they'd be interested in. Perhaps there are different sizes in the end. We don't know, but our first is it fits a couple burgers if you're on a golf cart or a boat, if you will. Several hot dogs. We put all kinds of stuff on it. So those are kind of the breakdown of the components.
I maybe should have mentioned in the introduction that last semester we had a number of students work on this as a project through the C3 and through some other classes that Stacy had, an MBA class and an undergrad class. And we actually tried to look at what features the market might expect in a product like this, and some things like that. We did some market research, some surveys, what was important to the customer, the potential customer. So it's been a good project for our students to be part of as well. Now, the phase we're entering into right now is more of the engineering side, so we can try to design in some of the features that we think are in the research are important to have nailed down. So
yeah, it definitely needs some work, but that shouldn't stop you, right? So one of the things that we had to overcome initially was building this perfect product and having unlimited capital to build inventory or whatever, but we grew enough of a passion around it and a belief that there's a market out there for it in a number of different ways, that rather than wait until things are perfect or to source engineers and take out loans and try to do some of those things, is that we took it upon ourselves to learn how this technology operates, put it together in enough of a way that we can share its capabilities or the concept with potential investors or customers, whoever that might be. So it wasn't something that we held back on. Now we're at a point where we've gained enough momentum and have enough of a plan and painted a picture, if you will, of what this could be, that we're getting access to resources, not just Indiana Tech, but others that want to help play a role and see kind of the vision. So that's been helpful from entrepreneurial side. We could have very easily said, you know what, let's not worry about it. It's taken a lot of time and commitment to overcome the hesitation of if it never works or not. And then you find little wins here and there.
What keeps you going?
What keeps us going? Well, we have a great friendship, first of all, and it's never been about making millions of dollars. We're just excited with the notion of something that we could. Well, first of all, the patent was a huge win, and it was something that was a milestone that we could accomplish together and get some validation through. And that's something that we now share, and it can't be taken away, and we accomplished together, and it was just a little bit of a milestone. But what keeps us going now is just the sheer joy that we have to get this on the market, on a shelf with a customer or distribution network that's our product. That's what was born of a four, who's your kid minds. We were kids more than we are now. But and it's just the novelty, the personal reward aspect of it. We all are relatively successful in what we do, so we're not begging the farm on making payments or racking up credit card debt, which happens with entrepreneurs, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if there's anything wrong with our group, you could argue, is that we need a little bit more push in that direction, So you can argue that a lot of entrepreneurs out there have remortgaged their house multiple times and have maxed out every credit card because they believe in it, and those are great romantic stories that are told by the Steve Jobs of the world that were piecing computers in garages together. But in this case, what keeps us going is just the fun enjoyment we get out of kicking ideas around with a small group of us what can make it better. We've had great experience with Indiana Tech here and thinking about what, ways to enhance the product and paths to market, and the process of it is just enjoyable to us. That might be a little odd, but that's our motivation. There are others that are motivated by other means as well. So this is just a glimpse of our website. You can go out to batterygrill.com today and check it out. What we've done with this website, although it's not on the market yet, is try to paint the picture to potential capital investors. So even though we have a patent today, we technically have one prototype. We're at the point where we need to engineer a production-ready model, which we have some potential partners with that, not unlike attorneys, charge very high rates to help you engineer and develop this production-ready prototype, which basically means they're going to engineer it with off-the-shelf or engineered components that can be produced by a manufacturing plant somewhere that can help generate inventory. And that in itself is, we're looking at roughly $15,000 is one quote we've received to engineer that. Yeah.
If a major company wanted to buy the product from you guys or buy the company, would you sell or would you keep going with that?
There would be a debate. We've got several, we're up for this conversation right now. I think we'd love to have that opportunity. I think that we probably want to have some kind of a relationship with them, whether it be licensing, that we would still retain some percentage of the sales that were generated from that, because we want to stay involved somehow and not just write it off. And that goes back to us just having wanting to be involved and not. We'd love to. I wouldn't turn down a big check and walk away. Don't get me wrong, but at this point our objective is to stay involved somehow, but get some resources and some help with either larger companies or engineering resources, or have people that can help us kind of take it to the next level, which we don't have the capability to do. So.
Patents are public records. Have any companies put out feelers to you that see if you might?
No, we've had a couple interactions with a grill manufacturer in Tennessee, which they manufacture a grill that sold from Target. I can't remember what the brand name is, Kangaroo or something. And then they have an electric grill brand, but they believe it's got a great spot in the market, and haven't necessarily sold the right corner office yet. I think we've got some people in our pocket that we're talking to, but not having heard from Weber's or anybody like that yet. We'll see.
A couple questions from an engineering standpoint. Would a final product come also with maybe a feet, a stand that you can set on maybe a picnic table or something?
Where you're not on the go.
Yeah, yes, you don't have to clamp it to something.
Yeah.
And as far as different sizes go, are the batteries in the back as a weight distribution thing, or would it being closer to the grill, cause heat issues?
We've not had that problem yet. It does help with kind of balance and weight distribution. So
because I was kind of thinking like a George Foreman grill format with the battery packs in the bottom. Surprisingly, the bottoms don't get way too hot. I was just wondering if that was a consideration for a more a camper style version of it. Because that seems very I wasn't sold on this until I saw the boat, and I was like, oh yeah, I would love that. I would have loved that out of the water. But as a camping grill, I wouldn't. It's I almost see the usability of it where traditionally I would use propane tanks, and you just have to stock up on those. Versus you can take those grill batteries or something and maybe include an accessory to solar charging or something. So for somebody that does hiking or something, to where they're pretty off the grid, that could be pretty useful. But it would have to almost be more like a tabletop.
You got it. Yeah.
So have you considered that, or?
We've considered lots of accessories.
Obviously you've been obsessing over this for several years, but with a final, are you trying to push for that? Would a final version have a few adapters or something?
Yeah, I think where we've landed is that we did see some demand out of the research groups here and through our network that said it'd be nice to not just have it necessarily on the go, to your point, Clint, but could you use it inside? Electric grills you can use inside, like a Foreman or whatever. Can you bring it in, and even perhaps plug it in if you're at an accessible point to an outlet, if you wanted to use the grill in that sense and have multi-use purposes. But as far as a stand goes, haven't really gone down that road, but I mean, everything's on the table at this point, so we're not at a, it's not, you know,
Also,
packaged
just
on the market,
one
but I think that's a great idea.
dumb question. Why is the grate upside down?
Actually,
Like,
it's
is that a
not.
particular
it's just
reason?
how that one was, and I don't know if that's an official, like, I forget where we clipped that out of, but it fit best in the grill that way at the time. So, and it actually, you know,
That's kinda
why
what
the
I
grate was
thought,
upside down in
yeah.
this case is
Yeah.
because it controlled the roll of our hot dogs.
Oh, then that makes a lot of sense if you're
Sit down in
on
there.
like a golf cart or something.
Which is another
Quite
problem that we have in food shifting, but we've got some.
Well,
plans
I'm
on,
assuming that's what the whole clamp together
clamping.
idea was for.
Yep. So-
Because I'd never really considered bringing even like a hot plate or anything on a small boat. They move too much.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, throw a fish on there.
Was there ever a point where you guys doubted yourselves, or do you guys like stay calm and cool?
We,
throughout the whole
we
time?
still doubt ourselves, but we get over it. But we meet with you guys like this, and we have inspired people like, I would love this product on a boat, and that's enough to like get fired up again and schedule another Sunday night, you know, WebEx meeting that we have, or Skype meeting with our friends, and like get fired up again. So we've gone through that a ton of times. It's hard.
Let's figure out how to clean
Especially when you
fish
have
on a boat.
wives wondering, you know, how much more it's going to cost out of their bank accounts for us to keep this dream alive. So,
At least you can like mortgage your house if you mentioned.
not yet. No.
One thought that I have is that if you're using like off-the-shelf products to build the grill, are you gonna have to do some licensing there to be able to use those legally?
Perhaps, but the more that we've gotten into this from an engineering standpoint, we're kind of focused on engineering and producing our own products. We've switched gears, and I may have not touched on this at extent earlier, but we've kind of gone away from the off-the-shelf battery perspective. We're now focused on finding some partners who can build us our own battery that we'll own licensing for, won't be obsolete when Black & Decker or Lowe's or Cobalt or one of the manufacturers of batteries decide that they're going to change their technology, which would then subject us to having to change our attachment and whatnot.
Are
So-
you like having a batteries that you buy separately, or are you just pretty much making your own drill batteries?
We're hoping that we can find a battery, you know, manufacturer, if you will, that will make our own lithium-ion or fuel cell. I forget, these engineer guys back here has a battery technology that he thinks would be a good direction to go. And the great thing,
Well, I mean, will it still be like one of those swappable things?
yeah, you'd still be able to take it off and charge
Yeah.
it. Is the
Yeah.
idea.
Okay.
But it would be our Go Grill battery.
What was it last on just those two drill batteries?
Well, you know what? We've got some jump up here. A few. Maybe we can jump back to the videos. But so we've done some testing. We started with 218 volts. We could get up to about 375. Grill a couple burgers in 17 minutes and exhaust the batteries 30%. So that was our 18 volt experiment. Then now 40 volts are available, and we're even up to 80, which we've tested. And we've got a crazy video that shows that. But with 40, we got to 400 degrees, very hot in 7 minutes. Grilled steak that time in 16 minutes, and used only about 15%, up to 15% of the battery. With the 80 volt, which are powering like push lawnmowers that you probably have seen on television from time to time now, we got to 400 degrees in 2 minutes, which is ridiculous. It's faster than a lot of ovens. We'll get to grilled a couple of frozen burgers in 6 minutes and only exhausted 7% of the battery. So one of the things that keeps us going too is the battery innovation. Battery technology is just exponentially growing almost by the month, and their efficiency and power, they're able to generate the size that you can get them to. So we feel like this product is, we're in the right development time and window to make this go. So
Yeah, that's kind of a key point. It really
It
is.
is.
I mean, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have the battery power to
No.
really make this viable.
not whatsoever.
Now the cost of those batteries are coming down, and the lithium-ion technology is just, the researchers creating new and better all the time.
It's almost like computer memory that
Yeah.
you buy a 30
Much power for
gigabyte
half-
flash
much power for
stick
half the
now.
price,
Yeah, exactly.
Marcus has a question.
Yeah.
How do you plan on getting this to the market and use the fund for investment?
How are we planning on getting it to market?
How do you plan on getting it to the market, get it in front of investors?
So where we're at right now is, you know, we've a number of paths to market. So, but our first intention is to develop our production-ready prototype, which will be able to be quoted and estimated about how much it's going to cost to produce, how much it's going to cost to retail, and then that will bring us to a point where we can decide on whether we're going to try and get capital investment to build inventory and then obviously pay back our shareholders, or have a more compelling argument to the Webbers of the world or other grill manufacturers that we can bring to them and have, you know, something that's a little further along than our existing prototype. So we're like a licensing agreement. We haven't really committed to a path to market. We've got some thoughts. We'd like to. Obviously, the biggest benefit would be to retain our ownership of it and build them and make it, but there's some implications there we're not sure about. Yeah.
I know you said you went to like, so it's like fixtures and offers, but like what place would you kind of sell it, just offline, or would you try and sell it in store as well? If so in store, like what stores?
Well, we've talked about, you know, one of the strategies that the class came away with is perhaps piloting it with local brick and mortar stores that are specialty shops, higher end food shops, or sporting stores that aren't necessarily having to like get on the shelf of Walmart tomorrow, that maybe offer us some sales statistics that we can then bring to investors or other retailers that might want to pick up their grill. If you've got, this being an entrepreneur club's probably watched Shark Tank, and more often than not, the people that are getting deals are the ones that have exhibited the ability to generate sales. So their eyes all perk up and they sit up in their seats when they say, I've generated, you know, $300,000 in sales in the last 6 months. And that's tangible to retailers, that's tangible to capital investors. And for us to, you know, exhibit that and to share that kind of a metric, we need to generate a prototype, perhaps produce a few to generate some numbers that we can share, and then they can calculate that out in their head and they can go from there. So
I know it's like heating, like how long it took to heat like a steak or a burger or whatever, but did you know, like a cool down like time period?
We
Like
haven't
if you're on the
tested
go,
that. We
you
just-
wanna like, okay, we're done, let's go. Is it like heat resistant on the outside, or how's it gonna like?
yeah, actually, I mentioned, you know, one of our prototype objectives is to insulate it a little better than it is now, because it does get hot to the touch, especially when we're generating that high level of heat with higher voltage. The top and the bottom each actually have two bread pans. It's 4 total, so there's some insulation. And again, spit and glue, balsa wood, something along those lines. I think I talked to these guys about that insulation type to.
Yeah, there was some type of material that the students suggested had good insulating properties.
Yeah, I think one of these
Might
guys,
think
yeah.
about using aluminum with some kind of core and center that was very thermally, wouldn't conduct heat very well.
Safety's a great point that we've not really got to that point yet. We've been focused on kind of the benefit side of hot food, quick and on the go,
Yeah.
and not worried about the other elements, but we're trying to work out to that point. So, go ahead.
And then it's like the second question, because I mean I have like a George Foreman at home, but is there gonna be like the grate that's on it? Are you gonna be able to like remove it so you can
Clean
like,
it.
clean it?
Yeah, dishwasher ready is on our objective list.
So I had a George
That's not
Foreman that
necessarily
you
no.
couldn't like remove the plates, and I'm like, I can't clean this.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No,
Because
it's-
it takes a while to clean, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a pain. It's awful right now, so. We need help. Go ahead.
No, I know you probably haven't reached this stage yet, but given it's a really hot thing you attach to a post on a moving vehicle, I see a lot of potential for people hurting themselves and lawsuits. And who handles helping you write the warning labels, getting it certified by the underwriters laboratory? Like, who handles all that? Do you guys have to go and figure all that out, or does like the company doing the final engineering of the product do it?
That's a great question, and I don't have an answer to that. I assume on the back side of our box there will be lots of warnings and
But
labels and
you're
such, but
hands
I don't know
off for
where
that.
those
You're
travel.
saying somebody else has already
Yeah.
got that under control, so you don't even have to mess with it.
Well, at some point we will. If we get down to, a retailer says, yes, sell, I want to buy 1,000 of these and be, not held liable in the case
Yeah.
of a, consumers using it the wrong way or putting it, and there are lots of products on the market that the right warning labels through, and I'm not sure exactly what that process is that defines.
There's got to be some kind of service for it.
Yeah.
Because last time
FDA
I
or some
opened the
government
microwave
entity,
out of
I'm
the
sure.
box and it said, "Don't put children or small animals in the microwave." And I Googled
I'm
it,
sure that one
and
would
a
be-
woman tried to dry off her poodle in a microwave.
That's all.
And that's how that started. So there's got to be like a service where they go through and have like a catalog of this type of product's got to have these warnings.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I know that will have to be part of it.
Buying product liability insurance will be part of their expenses, that's clear.
Yeah.
As a company, they will have to have that, even though, actually, you guys are a corporation, or you're
Mhm.
incorporated.
Yep.
So they won't have worries necessarily about personal liability, but the company will want to have insurance.
Right.
Some
Yeah, once we start producing these in mass and having them owned by others that aren't in our families.
Have you looked at like Kickstarter and starting one of those campaigns as soon as you have something closer, or even going into developing it?
Yeah,
Do a prototype.
actually, we were weeks away from launching a Kickstarter campaign before we caught up with Mark and Stacy here to, pause and collect some more input related to the product itself. And specifically, we're focused on generating enough capital to fund the production unit, the production-ready prototype. So, and that's that 15 or 20,000, somewhat attainable, but we haven't executed the campaign yet, still working through some things here. But you got experience in Kickstarter?
Not really.
It's a great
I've
medium,
invested in
yeah.
a few things, but
Yeah.
none of them panned out.
You guys all in for $100 and you put it on Kickstarter?
Well, it's 2016. It has to have one thing. LEDs.
LEDs?
Yes,
Yeah.
that sells.
That was one.
Oh, yeah, no, it needs to be low.
It'll probably go.
What kind of experience
You got poke holes in everything.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Did you watch CES at all?
I said, what kind of creative space were you in when you were part of the making the product?
Kind of creative space.
Creative space. What made you create this product?
Oh, 4 buddies in a small cabin, drinking some Cokes and other beverages. That's our. Then we kicked it around. It's not a very romantic story, but it's the truth. So.
What the process was for creating this.
Just in this, past 20 minutes, this list has grown incredibly, and we have a ton of, enhancement recommendations from the classes we worked with. But we know that we need to work on our battery strategy, as I mentioned. Exclusivity is kind of where we're going, but power and size, larger grill service, thermostat, grease trap, upper heating element grate. So these were some of the things that we've been working on, and then always adding new items to the list. Accessorizing was one of the things that came up. So, this was, you saw initially in September. We've advanced this somewhat with some of the work that we've done, again, with Stacy and Mark, but also just through our continued collaboration. But establishing demand, where the markets are, where are the markets that we need to focus our energies first. You saw that laundry list earlier. There's all kinds of markets, but how do we most appeal to those markets, and where's the biggest bang for our buck? Where do we want to start? And then under what pretense or specifications would that require? So if we're going to go the marine route, what does that require for them to be compelled to buy? If we're going to go the apartment route or the golf or whatever it might be, what are the specifications that are going to help us be most marketable in that space? And we've started to refine that and focus a little bit, but that's was one of our considerations. You mentioned earlier, what are the potential paths to market? Licensing and partnership is obviously one. The production, obviously us owning the production and management of the overall company, which involves those things like generating capital. Although each one of us are relatively successful in our careers, we're not able to write fat checks that need to happen in order for us to make this go. Production ready prototype, as I've mentioned a few times, and then what the marketing and distribution strategy is, if with us as the managing entity and the producers of this. And do we go through exclusive retailers? Do we go direct to consumer with online strategies? We haven't necessarily locked in on that yet. Or if Weber comes and says we'll write you a $3 million check for the patent and walk away, then we'll probably walk away, but it'll probably take not much less than that. And then we just had some miscellaneous, there's, Grill market's hot. In many ways.
That was so
Subtle, right?
I didn't intend that. This gets in a little, we looked at some trending, and this is something I mentioned before, is price of lithium-ion packs could fall by a third in the next 10 years. Has big impact not only on electric cars, but renewable energy storage. We, again, feel like we're in the right place at the right time as far as this product goes. And then mobility is a big trend in the grilling industry. We've got some references here. We don't need to necessarily click through. I mentioned earlier is that, and this is really supporting that argument where if you already had batteries that would power it, so this isn't probably as relevant anymore, but it does get into the size and portability of powerful batteries. We've got some partners that we've connected with that are engineering type firms, but again, have held kind of off on those to engage in this relationship and spend some time in other ways. Our balcony grill reference about how dangerous it would be because of the open flame, so that's supporting our argument for battery powered grills. And then you mentioned earlier, is off the grid, how are we going to repower our batteries? Solar technology continues to grow in size and portability as well, and can we use that for the Appalachian hikers that want to pack this thing and cook? So,
Do you see this being a niche product permanently, or do you see it growing outside of that? Like, do you only see it being used in cases where propane is just not safe to use? Like, otherwise, how would you convince like the Hank Hills of the world that that's not it's better than propane? Because
because he
if
sells
you could
propane and propane accessories.
If it's not dangerous, I would still see myself getting a propane grill in those cases.
No,
Do you see
I
it
think
just
our-
a niche market like on boats and stuff and
I think-
balconies?
Yeah, I think where our head's at is a niche product at this point, but something else that keeps us going that we talked about earlier is that I think in the realm of entrepreneurs, there's always an application that's introduced that they're not always thinking about that makes it go and it takes on a life of its own. It hits that tipping point, and I'm just not convinced that we've come across that yet. And maybe that's in this room somewhere. I don't know, but our limited minds to this date have been around tailgating, golfing, and boating, and things that guys do, live in apartments.
Have you considered talking to golf cart manufacturers to see if they might want to put it
As an option?
Yeah.
No, we've kind of kicked that around. It started with boat manufacturers, like maybe that could be an option that somebody could add, but I like the idea of golf manufacturers too.
So speaking back to the crowdfunding, I've supported some products on there, and I've realized they get a ton of attention through like different tech websites and stuff like that. And if I can remember correctly, there was a cooler on there that generated like $10 million.
Oh, really?
Everybody wanted the cooler.
Yeah.
And so, why wouldn't they want
Right.
us to go with their cooler?
Wasn't that like a what was it?
Yeah, I think
I
it's
just-
a cooler with radio.
I just remember it was exceedingly stupid, but it got like a ton of attention.
So I mean,
Yeah,
if
I
that
think
can happen, why wouldn't they want to go with it?
Kickstarter is definitely a possibility. I know there's some others out there now too.
It's almost free marketing.
Yeah, we're trying to come up with what the incentives though on the Kickstarter front is like. You have to offer tiers of like you give this much, what do I get in return?
What's the cost you see for this, like the base model?
Between $100 and $200, depending on what the battery technology is, the size, if you will. We've done a little bit of research on that, on what someone would pay for that. We'd like to get it like under $100, but people seem to be, of the research that we've done, willing to pay the realm of $100.
I remember one of the kind of interesting things in the research that maybe I'll share with you. Kyle has talked about his three partners, and they're all men, and he talked about the manly men, golf outings and things, and that's all fine. But some of the research showed that there's a market for this among women that might be stronger than you guys had
No question.
thought about or had the ability to kind of think about.
Yeah.
So it kind of broadened your perspective and your horizon about what features like the features that appeal to men aren't necessarily
Absolutely.
the ones that will appeal to women. And
Right.
so you're kind of thinking that through too.
Yep.
But that's sometimes a limitation in who you form a company with.
No question. Our wives would all agree that we don't understand women either.
How much money in sales did you guys get again?
We've not sold one, so that's what we're focused on now, is generating that prototype that'll allow us to develop some inventory and then tell that story to the Mark Cuban, hopefully.
What do you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And you were saying the price, how much it was costing?
We've got a range based on research between 100 and 200, toward the lower end of that, 125-ish, I think is where we were at. And then some of that's going to be dependent on now the battery technology that we are going to develop, with an entity that's going to help us do that. We have enough trouble wiring a heating element to existing batteries, let alone making our own. So
How much does it cost to make one?
we're working on getting it close to that. There's actually a company out of Indianapolis called the Battery Innovation Center, and they're actually a government-funded entity that's helping companies that are serving the renewable energy space generate technology or source batteries for their products. So that's something that we're working through. We haven't got a quote yet. So
That's what you want for your grill. So that's what
yeah, so they're going to make us off Go Grill or whatever we call it battery that would source this. But off the shelf lithium ion, 40-volt batteries are like $60.
As far as the battery goes, like I know, like looking at that chart you had up there, it got like the heating up to speed up faster, but it also looked like with the 80 volt that like the percentage of battery usage might have actually been worse with the 80 volt versus the 41 sort of thing. Like, like if you if over time sort of thing for the time sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, are you looking at like, do you want it to like heat up the fastest so that you can cook faster, or like because like.
We're trying to find a sweet spot. I don't know
Sweet
exactly.
spot?
Yeah, there's a give and take related to how often you're going to have to recharge your battery versus how fast and hot you get your grill. Something that we don't have on that grill right now is it's just on and off the way the grill is right now. So it starts taking energy right away. We can't really control the volts and the amps and such to have the battery, not expend as much energy as quickly. But that's something we're going to introduce, but it's a great point that we're not sure exactly where that's going to land, and some of that will be dependent on the battery that we end up sourcing to run this thing. So,
is this the only battery-powered grill?
as far as we know, you can Google up and down. Mark's tried to find one and prove me wrong. But
There's a product that was really successful financially recently. Those stupid little hoverboards. Swagway. Have you considered going the Swagway route and just engineering the whole thing in your basement and then printing the Underwriter's Laboratory sticker yourself?
I'm not up to speed on this situation to comment.
They catch on fire.
Yeah, I know that.
And they
catch on fire.
forge the the certifications and stuff.
Okay, is that what that was? I
Yeah.
didn't know they were
So
forged.
yeah, they're
I knew that
forged.
they were having.
They use like Chinese
I knew they were having
batteries.
fire issues.
Well, it turns out that people were giving the Underwriter's Laboratory a ton of crap, and then they just printed the sticker themselves. Didn't even get
There you go.
certified.
That resolves that question you asked me earlier about warning labels.
Yeah, it's like,
totally
you're
blasted
just
through
going to do it
30
all
minutes.
yourself, just
Right,
you
I don't know.
approve on it.
You don't mind the sticking around?
This is great. I mean, I love, there's a lot of bright minds in here. It's fun.
I was wondering if you're going to charge like between $100 and $200 for this stuff. Do you see that actually working with crowdfunding? Because a lot of crowdfunding that seems to be successful has like $10 to $20
Can you
costs.
repeat the question?
As far as the investment from the crowdfunder?
Yeah,
Okay.
they have a really low cost. So
Yeah, he's asking between $100 and $200 if that would work against crowdfunding. And just to clarify, so coming up with tiers of incentives related to Kickstarter didn't start at $100, started at $5. Can you contribute? What do you get in return if this makes it to market or we meet our goal? We start at again, very limited scope here, golf tees and golf balls and, t-shirts that we're having fun with, the notion of flameless grilling with, and some things that were at tiers that were lower that you could participate in and perhaps, get a discount on one if you wanted one down the road. We've not determined exactly what those tiers are yet, but we're going to start at $100. So it's a good point. Yeah. Yep.
Would you offer it in purple?
Hey,
Because people like
customization
him
was a big
go-
trend we saw in the research
Go
too.
on Kickstarter and go, well, is it in purple? And then if it is, throw a bunch of money at it. Now it sounds stupid, but that's what people seem to do.
Or the ability to put teams wrapped on the outside.
Oh, get like
Sports
a
teams
get
and
like
such,
a
so-
licensed NFL.
Yep, yep, which is
Would
something that I'm not
would
savvy
that like
to.
not
obviously.
like tarnish get blackened over time though?
It hasn't really. I don't know that what the material in the wrap would
You
be,
got it
but maybe
insulated
that we'd
too,
have
don't
to
you?
figure
You
out.
have
Yeah.
it in several layers.
Yes, exactly. The inside is what takes the beating.
The other thought with crowdfunding is you could have like an early bird, like I see everywhere, and so you have a lower price there, and then as that fills up, say like 50 people, then you have a little
Yeah.
bit more and a little bit more. That way you can
That's
fill
good.
it all out, and you could even offer like custom engraved ones.
Very good. Like the iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, technology is something the research found as well is how can we integrate technology with this, because it seems to be like a younger demographic, people that are savvy, that would be more apt to get behind a green energy source that has some of the attributes of portability and perhaps apps that you can monitor grill temperature with, or engage with the grilling in some sort of way is something that was on a list of recommendations we received too. So trying to get in tune with that audience is key.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I think you're off the hook.
I didn't expect that, Marshall. Thank you.